Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 9, our lecture on movement and fine motor development. A few big things I just want to highlight that we're going to talk about today. The first one is the connection between motor development, that is movement, and the senses and how they contribute and support early writing for young children. I want us to really become aware of how important it is that children develop physically so that they have the strength and control over their muscles to be able to sit comfortably and write with a pencil. We do all the work of that in early childhood education for preparing children for that skill. And we do that by giving children beautiful, rich movement opportunities that support them to make marks in all kinds of different ways, on paper, with chalk, with paint, in the air when they dance, and we embed them into the school day. And an understanding as well, I hope that you will leave with the importance of the language that you use, of the words that you say for developing writing. There's a lovely quote here from the Early Learning Years framework, and I've included it because I think when we talk about writing, it's important as early childhood teachers we understand where that fits in with literacy. Literacy is not just the capacity to read and write words. Literacy is the capacity, the confidence, the disposition, and by disposition it means the attitude, to use language in all its forms. Now, literacy involves so much more than the written and spoken word. It involves communication, including music, movement, dance, storytelling, visual art, media, drama, as well as talking and listening, viewing, reading, and finally, writing. So we see that writing in the early years, particularly when we talk about children from birth to age 5, our role is to expose them to literacy in everyday life experiences. We need to stimulate young children through exposure to some of the key ideas about literacy. Now, exposure and experiences through play is very different to what we might call more formal or traditional reading and writing. We don't want 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds to be doing things like tracing or sitting down and practicing their writing. We do that in a much more holistic way. So I wanted to clarify that for us as teachers, we're not so focused on precise writing practice or letter formation. We're more focused on developing the muscles, on the capacity of young children to engage in those experiences with confidence. The way we do that, first and foremost, believe it or not, is through gross motor activities. There is a huge connection between gross motor, that's our big muscles, and fine motor skills. Those big gross motor activities develop and strengthen the muscles through large movements, through balance, coordination, body awareness, and sensory integration. So those fundamental movement skills that we were talking about, jumping, hopping, running, all of those things support children, believe it or not, to use their smaller muscles. And one way as early childhood professionals that we can do this is through tummy and back play. Now, I want you to look at this image and think about all the opportunities for very young children either lying on their tummy or lying on their back to develop their fine and gross motor skills. They do this by reaching for different materials, by grasping, by holding different materials, by lifting different materials, by banging the sticks on the xylophone, by shaking the rattle, by arranging and balancing the different shapes that will have different weight and different textures and feel differently in their hands. Children in this setting could also sit up with some support from the cushions to use the materials, and that's supporting their core. That is their tummy and their muscles in their core to be able then to use their fine motor skills with greater comfort and much more ease. Think about when you're really, really tired. How hard is it for you to sit up and start writing or start typing something into your laptop? You want to have that strong sense of core so that you're able to do that. So as I'm sort of heading towards, you can see there's a big connection between fine motor and gross motor skills. The fine motor skills support the coordination of the small muscles in the body. So we're wanting to think about how we can support children to use these little muscles, the muscles in their hands, the muscles in their feet, the muscles in their face. When focusing on, I'll move my cursor, on supporting fine motor development, we've got to recognize this link between the core skills and the strength. In this particular picture here, you can see the children are sitting up. This child is resting on their hands and knees. That gives them the support they need to use their muscles in their arm and also to use the muscles in their hands. This child here is sitting crisscross. That's a great way for a body to get the feedback that it needs. My body's in this space and I can focus on using my hand to make marks with the chalk on the floor. So we want to strengthen and giving children opportunities to strengthen their arms. So when we're crawling, we're on our hands and knees, we're strengthening our muscles in our upper arms. But we also want to give children this muscle here along the pinky is really important. The bones of their hands. Open, shut them, open, shut them. Those skills are practiced through music in that particular example. They're also practiced in a whole lot of ways that I've listed here. And you can see here's yours truly using a puppet. And to use and manipulate that puppet, I need to use the small bones in my hand to open and close. I need to be able to have strength to hold the puppet upright. There is a child here, but you can't see them because I've had to cover their face for their protection, their privacy. But there's a whole lot of baskets of toys here, blocks and open-ended materials. This child is sitting up. They're using their core to sit up on their bottom and to lift different objects up and offer them to the puppet, and then put some in the basket next to them, and then take some out and push them together. So that's one example of using blocks to practice and develop not just their fine motor skills by pushing them up together and pulling them apart, but also they're relying on their core to have the balance to be able to do that. Other materials, Play-Doh and clay, and think about the language that I'm using here. With Play-Doh and clay, and it doesn't have to be Play-Doh, it can be any kind of dough, children can roll, they can tear, they can rub materials together, they can twist, they can roll things out and then create different objects using the clay. Because of the different weight of the clay and the different texture of the clay, that will support them in developing their motor strength. Particularly, Play-Doh is quite light, but if you're using real clay with children, that requires a lot more push and a lot more awareness and physical strength to shape and pull the clay apart. May also involve using some water. Think about cooking. How when we're cooking with children, are we whisking? Are we mixing? Are we pouring? Are we patting? Think of again the language that you're using that helps children understand how they're using their muscles. You're using your hands to pat the cakes together. You're pouring the water in to mix the cake mix. So there's different languages there. Think about a dramatic play area. Are children washing? Are they twisting wet clothes before they hang them out to dry. Using pegs, again, that requires fine motor. When we're looking at clothes in the dress-up area, do these clothes have buttons, zips, Velcro, all those different things that give children the practice to develop their fine motor control. Shoelaces, we don't see so much on children's shoes because Velcro is easier and it gives children more autonomy. But at the same time, they're not getting that opportunity to practice that very fine skill of tying their shoelaces. Finger paint, using cornflour, sand, all of those different opportunities help children to develop how to use their fingers and to make shapes and patterns. And it's so exciting to watch children as they draw and make different marks with materials. Think about open-ended materials, a box full of buttons, chopsticks, pincers, tongs, spoons, all of those things that practice twisting. And of course, songs, like I sang to you earlier before, action songs, open, shut them, felt stories, using that rotating, which we need to open doors. Very important. And finger isolation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jazzy hands. Thinking about how we give children the opportunity to express themselves through their small muscles and their big muscles. And again, you want to think about what kind of objects, different weights, different textures that support children's sensory understanding. And when we get back, as I mentioned earlier, that idea of the senses, of how handwriting not just develops through movement skills, both gross motor and fine motor, but also through our senses, the tactile sense. Some children will love the feeling of finger paint. Other children, they won't like that feeling, but they might love clay, or they might love goop, or they might love sand. Are we giving children sand trays and sand boxes to express what they know through those materials and develop their tactile sense? It's very important that children have a sense of touch if they're using different writing tools, and that they've got that sense of their body in space. I need to hold my hand over here. What pressure do I use to have different effects with different materials? So that's their proprioception, their sense of their body in space, and their vestibular sense, that core. As you saw in some of those pictures, the ability of the children, and like this child here, to sit up. It is fundamental. We cannot write at a table until we have core strength. Might also be important to think about giving children opportunities to practice big movements at an easel, or using pieces of plastic hanging from the roof where they can paint and have amazing drawings. So, writing is a movement skill. It is part of literacy. Looking at some of these images here, how can we develop children's movement through arranging different materials? Think in this picture here with all the flowers and the paper and the drawings. Think of the fine motor skills that would be required to pick the different objects up, to select them, to place them, to glue, to stick, to use scissors. All of those things we need to do. In this picture here, a child is standing, so that you're giving a child the opportunity to use their core skills to write on the floor, to bend down, to stand up, to make drawings on materials that are on the floor, or stuck on a wall, or stuck under a table. Michelle was talking about the schema of being enclosed. I had a little person that loved that sense of being enclosed. So I used to tape paper under a table, and she would reach up and draw under the table. And again here, we've got something for older children, an atelier for children who would probably be around 5 and 6. And you can see here that an adult is definitely going to be involved, because some of them are going to have to reach up to use the materials for the children to select. But they've placed them out beautifully. Squeezy bottles, children to push, all kinds of different materials. Here we've got a whole lot of different corks. I want you to think about a range of open-ended materials. And for class this week, we're going to bring a whole lot of loose parts. So start bringing your bottle tops, your water bottles, anything. And we will start practicing how different experiences support children to learn to write, not just sitting down and forming their letters. Talk to you soon.